Hello everyone, my name is Roya and today I'm going to tell you guys about the books that I read in the first half of March. I actually read 7 books in the first half of March, and interestingly enough 3 of them were actually audiobooks because I had kept checking out from the library the same 2 audiobooks because I just did not have the time to finish them. And then finally I checked them out one more time and actually read the rest of them. So anyway, so the first book that I finished in the month of March is Courting Darkness by Robin LaFevers. This is the first in a new kind of spin-off series to the His Fair Assassin trilogy. However, it really doesn't feel like a spin-off. It feels like a direct sequel because it's very much just a continuation of the exact same story. So this is told in 2 points of view. We do get a main character from the first trilogy, and then the other point of view is a new character who is almost equally awesome. This was actually my first 5-star book of the year so far, and that's out of over 30 books, so that's really saying something. But anyway, I absolutely loved this book. I definitely would recommend reading the original trilogy before reading this one. But yeah, it's very awesome. I love this whole series, but this one's definitely my favorite, I think. Next, I finished The Towers of Midnight by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. This is the 13th out of the 14th books in the Wheel of Time series. I really liked this one. I think the previous installment is actually my favorite in the series, but this one still had a lot of stuff that happened that was very significant to the story and very just insane, and I really loved it. Next, I read Fly Girl by R.D. Carden. This was sent to me for review via Acorn Publishing's little thing that they have for reviewers where you can request books that are available that month, etc., etc. So this is about a girl in 1997 who is trying to be a pilot. She wants to be a captain and basically just has to deal with all kinds of misogyny from the dudes she works with who are basically trying to screw her out or screw her over at everywhere she turns. Even if she thinks she can trust someone, they're basically just trying to screw her over. So she basically just has to deal with all kinds of crap. So this is a very interesting book. I really enjoyed reading it. There were parts where I just could not put it down. It's very well researched as well because the author herself actually was a pilot for a long time. However, it is full of some serious pilot vocabulary where there were some times when they're flying where all it is pilot vocabulary, and those parts kind of confused me a lot, but overall I really enjoyed this book. It is kind of interesting because I'm not sure if it really falls into new adult or adult, because even though mostly it's about a girl who is building her career, in that sense it's kind of new adult, but it actually has alternating perspectives and it kind of follows everybody, including the dudes who are basically trying to screw her over. And they are very much adults with adult problems like divorce, alcoholism, blah blah blah. So in that sense it's also an adult book, so I'm not really sure exactly where this falls. I guess it's both. I don't know. But yeah, it is very interesting. The only real thing that I thought could have been done better to improve the story would have been towards the end there's a conflict that happens off the page, and so you don't hear about it until characters talk about it later, and it seemed very not very fully developed, and especially since it does involve a character whose point of view we do follow in this, it almost should have happened on the page, so it just seemed very weird. So that kind of made the whole ending seem very jumbled together in a lot of ways, but overall I really enjoyed this book. I will, however, say that this does have some plane crashes that happen on the page, so do not read this if you're about to go travel by plane. Just trust me on this one. I read this immediately after getting back from a trip, so I had almost taken it with me on the trip, but thankfully I waited until I got back because there are plane crashes in this. But anyway, definitely read this book. It's awesome. When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore. This is a really good book. I actually was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. I thought that it, because I actually DNF'd her previous book a long time ago. A few years ago, I tried to read The Weight of Feathers, and it was just so much more over the top, where for some reason the magical realism elements just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I thought it seemed very weird. But in this, they made so much more sense. No matter how over the top they felt, they like would have seemed, it actually made perfect sense in the story. I don't know what it is about this one versus that one. Maybe it's just the place I was in at the time I read the other one. I don't know. But anyway, this is about a girl who is Latina, and she grows roses out of her wrists, and her best friend is a trans boy from Pakistan. And then there are these girls who are trying to get the roses, and it's a really good book. Definitely, it's very wordy in the sense that some scenes feel like they take forever, even though it's actually really quick, that sort of thing. But overall, I flew through this book. It's so good. My least favorite read of the month is Furyborn by Claire Legrand. I am actually really sad that I didn't like this book that much. I mean, it was okay, but so this is told in dual perspectives. It actually follows two people 1,000 years apart. So they're not even in the same timeline at all. So they actually, even though, I mean, they're related, and that's pretty obvious from the beginning, but their stories have nothing to do with each other at all. So I didn't really understand what the point was of following both of these stories when the book could have totally have just been about one of them and not both. So also every other chapter switches between the two. So because we were getting these, it was going so quickly between two completely different timelines that had nothing to do with each other, I was actually very confused. It kept me from getting fully invested in either of them. And to top it all off, neither of them really had any sort of clear objective as to what was happening at all. So for the most part, this entire book just fell really flat for me. It had some interesting concepts to it. Like overall, you know, if it had followed just one of the two, it could have been much better, but overall I just felt like the two timelines were too similar. The world building of both of them were too similar for 1,000-year difference. That's, you know, that you would think that it would be a lot more different from each other, and the two characters are somewhat similar, and I mean, the plot lines are not that similar. At the same time, that also meant that they had nothing to do with each other at all. Seraphina by Rachel Hartman. This is also a kind of so-so book for me, mostly because it was just such a slog to get through. This actually... I read half of it on ebook and then the other half on audiobook, and it just took me forever. I mean, it's an interesting concept. I love that I like the main character. I like that she's a musician and she's half dragon and people don't actually know that. Blah-de-blah, she lives in a world where like dragons can take human form and pass as human and people don't really like them. And it was all a very interesting concept. Like this whole world was actually pretty well developed, all of that, but just this whole book, I don't know, like the storytelling was just so incredibly boring. And finally, Binti, The Night Masquerade. This is the third book in the Binti series. I really, really liked this one. I think this was probably my favorite in the series. It's the one where we kind of got to see the most non-human aliens, the most stuff kind of going on that actually shows us the whole world besides just like her, because the second one kind of followed her own society that she comes from. The first one sort of set up the story overall, and then this one actually got us more into the world. So those are the books that I read in the first half of March. Let me know if you have any thoughts on them, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!